They said winter buries the truth, but on a frozen morning in Fargo, God had other plans. A powerful family believed a lie was enough to steal a fortune, a child, and a life. They poisoned trust, staged death, and thought no one would ever stand in their way. They forgot one thing: faith does not sleep, justice does not forget, and miracles often arrive through the quietest hands. A grieving father, a child who refused to disappear, and a former Navy SEAL with a dog trained not to bark, but to stop evil cold. What happened next was not luck, it was reckoning. Before we continue, share this story with someone who still believes that truth rises, even in winter. Comment where you're watching from, subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and justice, and may God bless everyone listening today. Snow over Oakwood Cemetery. Winter pressed down on Fargo, North Dakota, with a silence so heavy it felt deliberate, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Snow lay thick across Oakwood Cemetery, softening the sharp lines of headstones into pale, rounded shapes. Wind slid between bare trees, whispering through branches stripped clean by December. The air smelled of iron and cold earth, the kind that crept into bones and stayed there. Ethan Caldwell knelt in the snow. He was 46, tall by nature, but grief had bent him inward. His once athletic frame had thinned beneath a long black wool coat that now hung looser than it should. His hair, once jet black, was streaked heavily with gray at the temples. A trimmed beard framed a face cut with strong angles and a square jaw, but those edges had softened in the last 6 months, worn down by sleepless nights and quiet despair. Ethan Caldwell had built an empire from nothing. That was what the business magazines said. What they did not say was how easily an empire could collapse inside a man. His gloved hands trembled as he brushed snow from the small marble headstone in front of him. Mia Grace Caldwell, beloved daughter, forever 9. The words blurred as tears spilled down his face, freezing at the corners of his eyes before they could fall. His shoulders shook, not with loud sobs, but with something deeper, something hollow. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his breath fogging the air. "I failed you." Ethan pressed his forehead against the stone, ignoring the cold seeping through his knees. 6 months ago, fire had taken his daughter, or so the world believed. 6 months of funerals, condolences, courtrooms, and empty rooms that still smelled faintly of her shampoo. 6 months of medication he barely remembered swallowing, poured lovingly into tea by hands he trusted. What Ethan did not know was that the grave before him was empty. Less than 20 yards away, hidden behind the trunk of an old oak tree, a small figure stood trembling. Mia Caldwell was alive. She was thinner now, her face sharper, cheeks hollowed by hunger and fear. Her brown hair, once kept neatly at shoulder length, hung unevenly past her collarbone, tangled and dull. Dirt smudged her pale skin, and her coat, several sizes too big, swallowed her small frame. She hugged herself tightly, teeth chattering, though she wasn't sure if it was from the cold or the sight of her father breaking apart. Mia watched Ethan the way a frightened animal watches home from a distance, wanting to run, afraid to move. She had learned fear the hard way. The crunch of boots on snow reached her ears, and she froze. A man walked slowly through the cemetery gates. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his heavy navy winter jacket. His posture was straight but not rigid, the stance of someone trained to move efficiently rather than impressively. His beard was short and neatly trimmed, dark with hints of gray along the jawline. His face was angular, marked by old scars barely visible beneath weathered skin. His eyes were a calm, watchful hazel, constantly measuring distances, exits, threats. His left leg carried a slight stiffness, noticeable only if one knew what to look for. A reminder of a bullet taken years ago in a place most maps refused to name. His name was Noah Reed, former Navy SEAL. Noah had learned long ago that danger rarely announced itself loudly. It lingered at the edges, pretending to be nothing. At his side walked a German shepherd. Atlas was 5 years old, large even for his breed, with thick black and tan fur dusted white by falling snow. His ears stood tall and alert, eyes dark and intelligent. A black tactical harness hugged his muscular frame, a simple patch stitched across it in clear white letters. Service dog, do not pet. Atlas moved with quiet confidence, paws landing soundlessly despite his size. His head lifted occasionally, nostrils flaring as he read the invisible stories written into the air. His tail remained still, his body relaxed but ready. Atlas was not aggressive. He was worse. He was disciplined. Noah paused when Atlas slowed, the dog's attention shifting toward the oak tree. Noah did not turn his head immediately. He trusted Atlas more than most people. Instead, he adjusted his stance slightly, placing himself between the tree line and the kneeling man at the grave. To anyone watching from a distance, it would have looked unremarkable, a man and his dog taking a winter walk. To someone who knew violence, it looked like a locked door. Noah's gaze flicked toward Ethan, taking in the way the man knelt too still, too long, the way grief had carved him hollow. Noah had seen that look before, on teammates who survived when others didn't, on fathers who came home to empty houses. Atlas let out a low, barely audible sound, not a growl, a warning. Mia's heart pounded. She wanted to step forward, to call out, to end the nightmare. But fear held her in place. Fear of being seen, fear of being taken again, fear that someone else might be watching, someone who would not hesitate if she moved. Noah finally turned his head toward the oak tree. His eyes met Mia's. For just a second, the world seemed to stop. Noah did not speak. He did not reach for his phone. He did not react the way an ordinary man might when faced with the impossible. He simply nodded, once. A small, controlled motion. A promise. Atlas shifted, placing himself subtly wider, blocking the line of sight from the road beyond the cemetery. Anyone thinking of approaching would think twice. Anyone foolish enough not to would regret it. Behind Noah and Atlas, unseen by Ethan, the first line of defense had quietly taken shape. And somewhere beyond the snow-covered stones, the people who believed their plan was perfect had no idea they had just stepped into the cold shadow of a Navy SEAL, a shadow that did not forgive. Footprints in the snow and the secret in the tea. The wind shifted, not violently, not suddenly, but just enough to carry a different scent across the cemetery. Atlas caught it first. His ears angled forward, muscles tightening beneath his thick coat. It was not the clean smell of snow or frozen soil. It was oil, rubber, exhaust that had not yet cooled. Noah Reed noticed the change in the dog's posture before he noticed anything else. He stayed where he was. That was how Noah had survived war. You did not rush toward noise. You let danger reveal itself. Mia did not run to her father. Every instinct in her small body screamed to do exactly that, but fear held her back like a hand pressed to her chest. 6 months of captivity had rewired her thoughts. Running meant being seen. Being seen meant being taken again. She stayed behind the oak tree, fingers numb, breath shallow. Atlas shifted slightly, positioning his body so that his broad frame blocked the angle between the cemetery road and Ethan Caldwell. To anyone watching from a distance, it looked accidental. To anyone who understood protection, it was deliberate. Noah glanced at Ethan again. The man was still kneeling, unaware that the world around him had changed. Grief had narrowed his vision. His coat was dusted white now, snow settling into the seams like quiet judgment. His hands were bare, red with cold, as if he no longer cared what damage winter did to him. Mia swallowed hard. "Daddy," the word slipped out before she could stop it. It was barely louder than the wind, but in the stillness of the cemetery, it landed like a stone dropped into glass. Ethan froze, not slowly, not cautiously. His entire body locked, breath caught halfway in. For one terrible moment, he thought the sound had come from inside his head. He had heard her voice there before, in dreams, in empty rooms, in the space between heartbeats. "Mia," he whispered. Noah saw the change instantly, the way Ethan's shoulders stiffened, the way hope, sharp and dangerous, cut through despair. Atlas did not move. Mia stepped out from behind the tree. She took one step, then another, boots crunching softly in the snow. She looked impossibly small crossing the open space, her oversized coat flapping around her thin legs. Her face was pale, lips tinged blue from the cold, but her eyes were unmistakable. Ethan turned. The sound that came from him was not a word. It was something raw, torn from a place deeper than language. He stumbled to his feet, nearly falling as his knees buckled. "Mia!" She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the lines grief had carved into his face, far enough to pull back if someone shouted, if someone moved, if everything went wrong again. Noah stayed back. He had learned when to step forward and when not to. This was not his moment. His job was the space around it. Atlas stood like a statue, eyes scanning the tree line, the road, the shadows between headstones. His tail was still, his breathing slow. He did not bark, he did not growl. Anyone watching would feel it anyway. Mia's voice trembled when she spoke again. "I'm here. I didn't die." Ethan dropped to his knees in the snow, hands hovering inches from her, afraid to touch her, afraid she would vanish. When Mia reached for him, his restraint shattered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly it hurt, as if letting go would erase her again. His sobs came hard and fast now, steam pouring from his mouth into the frozen air. Noah turned his head slightly. Beyond the cemetery fence, tire tracks cut through fresh snow. Not old, not random. They stopped, then started again. Someone had been there. Someone had left. Noah filed it away without comment. When Ethan finally pulled back, his hands cupped Mia's face, thumbs brushing dirt from her cheeks. He looked older up close, not just from grief, but from betrayal that had not yet fully revealed itself. "You're freezing," he said hoarsely. "We have to get you somewhere warm." Mia shook her head. "And not home." The word landed heavy. Ethan frowned, confusion breaking through relief. "Why not?" Mia glanced past him, toward the road, toward the dark shapes beyond the snow. Her voice dropped. "Because she'll know." Ethan stiffened. "Who?" "My stepmother." The woman's image rose unbidden in his mind. Claire Caldwell, tall, elegant, always perfectly composed. Early 40s, slender build, long chestnut hair worn smooth and straight, skin untouched by winter or worry. Her smile was soft, practiced. Her voice gentle enough to soothe, sharp enough to cut when needed. Claire had been kindness itself after the fire. Tea every morning, medication sorted neatly into labeled boxes. A hand on his shoulder when he couldn't stand. A calm presence when his world burned. Mia's next words shattered that illusion. "She's the one," she whispered. "She paid them." Ethan's breath caught. Noah stepped closer then, closing the distance just enough to be heard. "Start from the beginning," he said quietly. Mia looked at him for the first time. Really looked. She saw the scars, the steady eyes, the way Atlas stood beside him, alert but calm. She did not know the words Navy SEAL, but she understood safety when she saw it. "There was a fire," Mia said, "but it was planned. I was taken before the flames spread. The man who kept me called someone the boss. A woman." Ethan felt the cold move inside his chest. Mia swallowed. "I heard her voice on the phone. I hear it every day at home." Silence fell between them. Noah did not react outwardly. Inside, his mind was already working angles, timelines, motives, faked deaths, slow poisonings. He had seen similar patterns before, greed dressed up as grief. "There's more," Mia said. Ethan leaned closer, bracing himself. "The tea," she whispered. "The medicine? It's not helping you. It's making you weaker." Ethan's hands trembled. Noah's jaw tightened. Atlas lifted his head slightly, eyes locking on the distant road again. Someone, somewhere, believed they were still in control. They were wrong. Behind the grief, behind the fear, something else was forming now. A shape, a plan, a quiet resistance. And standing at the center of it was a former Navy SEAL and a dog trained not to hesitate when monsters showed their teeth. The snow continued to fall, but the ground beneath the lies was beginning to crack. A SEAL does not fight with noise. They left the cemetery without haste. Noah Reed believed haste attracted attention, and attention killed plans before they were born. He guided Ethan and Mia through side streets where snowbanks swallowed sound and streetlights flickered like tired sentries. Atlas moved ahead, then behind, then to the flank, adjusting position without command, reading the city the way Noah read breathing patterns. Daniel Brooks lived in a low-rise brick building near the edge of downtown Fargo, the kind of place people stopped noticing after their third drive past. The lobby smelled faintly of old carpet and lemon cleaner. No cameras faced the street. Noah had clocked that immediately. Daniel Brooks opened the door himself. He was in his early 50s, medium height, broad through the chest, but softened by years of desk work. His hair was silver at the sides, darker on top, combed back with care that suggested discipline rather than vanity. His face was lined but kind, eyes sharp behind rectangular glasses. He wore a wool sweater over a pressed shirt, sleeves rolled slightly as if he had been working late. When Daniel saw Mia, he went pale. "My God," he breathed, one hand gripping the doorframe. "Ethan, is that—" "It's her," Ethan said. His voice shook, but his spine was straighter now. "She's alive." Daniel didn't ask questions. He stepped aside and locked the door behind them, then locked it again. Inside, the apartment was warm. Radiators hissed softly. The lighting was low and yellow, gentle on tired eyes. Mia sank onto the couch, her shoulders finally dropping. A woman appeared from the kitchen, drawn by the sound of voices. Her name was Sarah Brooks. Sarah was Daniel's wife, a former emergency room nurse who carried calm the way other people carried perfume. She was tall and lean, with light brown hair pulled into a loose braid that fell over one shoulder. Fine lines traced the corners of her eyes, earned through years of night shifts and difficult conversations. Her skin was pale, her movements economical, her presence steady. She took one look at Mia and knew. Without a word, Sarah crossed the room, wrapped a blanket around Mia's shoulders, and guided her toward the bathroom. "Warm water," she said softly. "Then soup." Mia followed her like someone learning how to breathe again. Noah remained near the door. Atlas lay down at his feet, eyes open, ears rotating independently. He did not sleep. Daniel poured whiskey into 2 glasses, then thought better of it and slid the bottle away. "Tell me everything," he said. Noah spoke first. "Not here," he said calmly. "Not all of it." Daniel nodded once. He had represented men like Noah before, men who did not waste words. They waited until Mia was asleep in the back room, wrapped in clean clothes and warmth. The sound of her breathing, steady and real, did something to Ethan that no therapy ever could. His hands stopped shaking. Then Noah laid it out. Why the police could not be trusted yet. How procedure could become a weapon. How someone with money and time could make a child disappear again if the wrong call was made too soon. Daniel listened, jaw tight, legal instincts colliding with survival logic. "You're saying this is a staged death," he said slowly. "Kidnapping, attempted murder." "Yes," Noah said, "and someone is still watching." As if summoned by the words, Atlas lifted his head. Noah moved to the window and parted the curtain by a fraction. Snow fell thicker now, blurring the street below. A sedan idled too long near the corner, its headlights off. Noah stepped back. "He wants to see if the light turns on," Noah said quietly. "He doesn't want to be seen seeing." Daniel swallowed. "Who would?" "Not yet," Noah said. "Names come after patterns." He turned to Ethan. "You go back home," Noah said. "You act broken. You drink the tea. You take the pills." Ethan stiffened. "No. You pretend," Noah corrected. "You survive." Silence fell. Ethan looked toward the back room, where his daughter slept for the first time without a locked door. Something hardened behind his eyes. "I'll do it," he said, "if it keeps her safe." Noah nodded. Respect passed between them. That night, Noah did not sleep. He sat in the dark, back against the wall, boots planted, Atlas pressed against his leg like a living shield. Outside, the sedan left, then returned, then left again. A test. Atlas rose once, silent as smoke, and placed himself between the door and the hallway. His presence filled the space. If someone forced entry, there would be no confusion about what happened next. Noah rested a hand on Atlas's harness. "This city thinks it's quiet," Noah murmured, "but quiet is where amateurs die." Atlas's tail thumped once. Agreement. By morning, the plan had bones. Mia would stay hidden. Sarah would watch her, nurse her back into strength. Daniel would begin preparing legal ground without triggering alarms. Ethan would return to the House of Lies. And Noah Reed, former Navy SEAL, would do what he did best. He would wait. Because somewhere out there, someone believed their crime was invisible, and nothing frightened a bully more than realizing the dark was no longer theirs. The winter trap and the lie, written into the will, Ano turned the Caldwell estate into something almost holy. The long driveway curved through white-draped pines, tire tracks erased again and again by the storm. The mansion itself stood solid and warm against the night, stone walls glowing softly beneath amber lights. To the outside world, it was the home of a grieving widower slowly losing his will to live. Ethan Caldwell played the role perfectly. He moved slower now, shoulders slumped, eyes unfocused. His beard had grown uneven, streaked with gray, his once sharp jaw hidden beneath neglect. He wore soft sweaters instead of tailored coats, slippers instead of shoes. To anyone watching, he looked like a man dissolving. Claire Caldwell watched him closely. She was seated at the kitchen island when he returned that evening, tall and elegant even at home. Claire's posture was flawless, back straight, chin lifted. Her chestnut hair fell smoothly to the middle of her back, glossy and controlled, never out of place. Her skin was pale, unmarked by winter, her features delicate but sharp. She moved with practiced gentleness, the kind learned by women who understood how power hid behind softness. "You're late," she said, voice calm, concerned. "I made your tea." The mug waited for him on the counter, steam curling upward. Ethan felt his pulse quicken, but he let none of it show. He nodded, reaching for the cup with a hand that trembled just enough to seem real. "Thank you," he murmured. Upstairs, hidden in plain sight, the smallest camera no larger than a coin watched from the smoke detector. Another rested inside a picture frame angled toward the counter. Daniel Brooks had installed them carefully, hands steady, movements precise. Noah Reed had chosen the locations. Noah understood lines of sight. Ethan lifted the mug, brought it close to his lips, then coughed suddenly. He turned away, pretending to steady himself against the counter. In that moment, he tipped the tea into the potted fern by the window, soil darkening as poison met earth. Claire noticed nothing. "Did you take your pills?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said. Another lie, another small victory. Miles away, in Daniel Brooks's apartment, Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, tablet balanced against his knee. Atlas lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open. Each time a camera angle shifted, or Claire's voice sharpened, Atlas's ears twitched. Noah cataloged everything. Claire's tone when she thought she was unheard. The way she lingered in rooms where Ethan slept. The phone calls she took late at night, stepping into the study, lowering her voice. Patterns emerged. Timings, gaps. Mia helped too. She sat at the kitchen table in Daniel's apartment, bundled in thick socks and an oversized sweater Sarah had found in storage. Color was slowly returning to her cheeks. Her eyes, still too old for her age, watched the screen carefully. "She pauses before she lies," Mia said softly. "Just for a second." Noah glanced at her. "Good catch." Mia straightened a little at that. Validation mattered. The truth came apart one thread at a time. It wasn't just Claire. Daniel uncovered discrepancies in the will, recent amendments, subtle changes that shifted control quietly, efficiently. A signature witness who shouldn't have been there. A financial shell company that traced back to a familiar name, Mark Caldwell, Ethan's younger brother. Mark arrived at the estate 2 days later. He was in his early 40s, broad-faced, with thinning blonde hair and a perpetual smirk that never quite reached his eyes. His beard was patchy, poorly maintained. He dressed expensively but carelessly, coats unbuttoned, shoes scuffed. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who had always lived in another's shadow and resented it deeply. Growing up, Mark had watched Ethan earn everything the hard way. Scholarships, contracts, respect. When Ethan built his empire, he had given Mark a seat at the table out of loyalty. It had not been enough. That evening, Noah listened through the feed, as Mark and Claire spoke in the living room, unaware the walls were no longer loyal. "How much longer?" Mark asked, voice low, impatient. Claire sighed, irritation breaking through her polish. "Weeks, maybe less. The dosage is right." "And the girl?" Claire's pause was longer this time. "Still hidden. Insurance." Atlas growled softly. Noah rested a hand on the dog's back, grounding both of them. That night, Noah made the call. "It's time," he said to Daniel. "We end this in winter." The plan changed shape. Not exposure yet, not arrest. That would be too clean. They needed greed to surface, to make the guilty careless. Ethan would die, on paper. The storm came as if summoned. Wind screamed across the estate, snow blinding, roads closing. Paramedics arrived fast when Claire's scream cut through the house. Ethan lay collapsed at the foot of the stairs, pale, unmoving. His pulse was weak, erratic. A doctor arrived too, a man in his 60s with heavy brows and tired eyes. Dr. Leonard Hayes. He owed Ethan more than money. Years ago, Ethan had paid for his daughter's cancer treatment without asking for thanks. Hayes did what was needed. Sirens wailed into the night as the ambulance disappeared into white. Across the street, a car idled. The driver watched, waited. In the shadow between garages, Atlas stood with Noah, snow dusting his dark fur. The harness patch caught the light briefly. The man in the car hesitated. Atlas took one step forward. No bark, no charge, just presence. The car pulled away. By morning, headlines would say Ethan Caldwell was dead. Claire would cry on camera, Mark would wear black, lawyers would gather. and beneath the snow, the trap would close. Because winter made liars careless, and a Navy SEAL did not need noise to end a war. The courtroom door and the winter that told the truth. The courthouse in downtown Fargo rose from the snow like a block of cold resolve. Gray stone, tall columns, windows darkened by an overcast sky that pressed low, heavy as judgment. News vans lined the street, engines humming, cameras already aimed. The inheritance hearing of Ethan Caldwell had become a quiet spectacle, a billionaire dead, a fortune waiting, a family dressed in black. Inside the courtroom, the air smelled faintly of old wood and polished floors. Claire Caldwell sat perfectly straight at the plaintiff's table. She wore a tailored black coat over a silk dress, mourning without excess. Her posture was flawless, chin lifted, shoulders relaxed. Her chestnut hair was swept back into a low, elegant knot, not a strand out of place. Her skin looked almost luminous against the dark fabric, pale and composed. To anyone watching, she was the image of dignified grief. Her hand rested lightly on a fountain pen. Beside her sat Mark Caldwell, broader than he had been weeks ago, carrying new confidence like a badly fitted suit. His beard was trimmed now, deliberate. His eyes flicked occasionally toward the judge, then toward the documents, calculating. He believed the waiting was over. At the defense table, Daniel Brooks stood calmly. His suit was dark, conservative. His glasses reflected the courtroom lights, hiding nothing and everything at once. He had spent decades learning how to wait for the precise second when truth landed hardest. The judge cleared his throat. "If there are no objections," he said, "the court is prepared to authorize." The doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. The sound echoed. Every head turned. Ethan Caldwell stepped inside, alive. He looked different now, still lean, still marked by grief, but standing straight again. His beard was trimmed, his eyes clear. He wore a dark coat, simple and unadorned, the kind of clothing chosen by a man who no longer needed to impress anyone. At his side walked Mia. She held his hand firmly, her fingers small but steady. She wore a navy winter coat, new but plain, her brown hair braided neatly. Her face still bore the softness of childhood, but her eyes had changed. They had seen darkness. They had survived it. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Claire's pen slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the table. Mark went rigid. Daniel stepped forward. "Your Honor," he said evenly, "there are, in fact, objections." Behind Ethan, Noah Reed entered last. He moved without hurry, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence unmistakable. His navy jacket was unzipped, revealing the quiet strength beneath. His beard was close-cropped, his expression unreadable. He took a position near the wall, eyes scanning the room automatically, identifying exits, threats, movements. Atlas followed and sat at Noah's feet. The German shepherd's dark eyes swept the courtroom once, before settling forward. His ears were upright. His body was relaxed, but everyone felt it. The unspoken understanding that violence would end badly for anyone foolish enough to try it. Noah did not look at Claire. Claire looked at him. And for the first time, her composure cracked. Daniel presented the evidence piece by piece. Audio recordings, video feeds, financial records, the amended will, the conversations between Claire and Mark, cold and precise, discussing dosage and timing as if they were planning renovations instead of deaths. A federal agent stepped forward, a woman in her late 30s with cropped and dark hair and a sharp jawline. Her name was Agent Rebecca Shaw. She wore a navy blazer over plain clothes, posture rigid, eyes unwavering. She had built her career dismantling quiet crimes committed by people who thought money made them untouchable. "Claire Caldwell," Shaw said, voice firm, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and kidnapping." Mark tried to stand. He didn't make it far. Handcuffs closed around both of them. Claire screamed then, not in grief, in rage. "You were supposed to die," she spat at Ethan. "You were weak. You were finished." Ethan said nothing. He knelt instead, bringing himself to Mia's eye level, blocking her view of the chaos. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. Noah watched Claire as officers led her away. Bullies always revealed themselves when they lost control. The courtroom dissolved into noise. Reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. But Noah stayed where he was, Atlas unmoving beside him, a quiet reminder that order still existed. Weeks passed. The storm outside faded into thin winter light. Mia began therapy. Ethan joined her. Some nights were harder than others. Some mornings still began with fear, but they were together. On a pale morning dusted with fresh snow, they returned to Oakwood Cemetery. No cameras, no crowd, just four figures. Ethan, Mia, Noah, Atlas. They stood before the marble headstone that had once marked a lie. Ethan raised a sledgehammer. Mia placed her hand over his. "Together," she said. The stone cracked. Once. Twice. When it fell, the silence felt clean. They turned away without looking back. Winter had tried to bury the truth. Instead, it had preserved it. And somewhere in the city, long after the headlines faded, people remembered this. That justice did not always arrive loudly, that sometimes it came with a steady man, a watchful dog, and the quiet end of a lie. Some people say miracles arrive with thunder, but more often, they come quietly. They come as a child who survives when the world says she should not. They come as truth that refuses to stay buried. They come as protection, placed in the path of evil at the exact moment it is needed. In this story, Winter tried to hide the truth. Power tried to rewrite fate. Greed tried to replace love. And yet, something greater intervened. Whether you call it God's hand, divine timing, or grace, one thing is clear. There are moments when heaven leans closer to earth, when the broken are guarded, when lies unravel, when justice arrives not through revenge, but through truth. In everyday life, miracles may not look dramatic. They may look like a warning you chose to listen to, a stranger who showed up at the right moment, a quiet strength that kept you going when you felt finished. If you are walking through a hard season right now, remember this. What feels buried is not always gone. What feels lost is not always finished. And what feels delayed may be protected by God's timing. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel so more stories of faith, justice, and quiet miracles can reach those who need them. May God bless you and your family. May He protect your children, guard your home, and strengthen your heart. And may you never forget that even in the coldest winters, light still finds a way through.